Hey everyone, thanks for stopping and checking out today's video. For some time I've wanted to do a video series of short videos on each model of the Honda CT70. We have a growing hobby. Lots of people are joining Facebook pages and internet forums. They've either picked up a bike or they're looking to pick up a bike, and honestly sometimes they don't even know what they have. So I thought it might be beneficial to do a series of videos that we could point back to or point them to and kind of show them the differences in each model that Honda made of the CT70. Today we're going to concentrate on the very first Honda CT70, the 3-speed semi-automatic, the K0. And today's video we're going to start off by just kind of pointing out some of the unique features that the K0 had over the rest of the line, and then we will jump into VIN numbers, identification, and what that VIN tells you, and so forth. So Honda made roughly 185,000, a little over 185,000 of the K0s. They made them in the three colors that you see: the candy red, sapphire blue, and candy gold. Now, the red and the blue, obviously I've resprayed, so they may not be 100% accurate, but they're pretty close. They give you, they're close enough to give you a representation of what the original color was supposed to look like. The gold one still has its original paint. That's a bike I haven't done anything to yet. Honda didn't leave, or if they did, we haven't found it. To the best of my knowledge, they didn't leave a lot of information as far as how many of this and that and so forth. So I've collected data over a bunch of years, VINs and colors of bikes and so forth. And the best I can tell, they produced equal amounts of each color. Looks also like they painted them in batches. Couple hundred of these, couple hundred of the next color, couple hundred of the next color, and then just kept rotating around. I think the thing that sets off the K0 right off the bat for most people is the headlight bucket. I think that's the first thing people see. The K0 was the only CT70 to have a one-piece headlight and speedometer bucket. Obviously, they split them after every model after that. You're wrong, Mike. You got ahead of yourself. When Honda reintroduced the CT70 in 1991, they also used a one-piece headlight and speedometer bucket. I don't collect those bikes. I kind of forgot about those until I rewatched the video. Sorry about that. The decal also, now Honda, they used a different decal on each model, but because they made so many of this bike, like I said, they made over 185,000 of them, which is roughly about a third of all the CT70s made. So when Honda started with this model, man, they went hot and heavy, and they produced a lot of them. So that horizontal Honda with the vertical black and white stripes, that's easily identifiable as a K0. The front forks, I call them a pogo stick front end. You've basically just got a fork leg that has a long spring inside the fork tube. There's no hydraulic oil. There's a little bit of grease to help it slide back and forth, but basically the front end just bounces up and down like a pogo stick, and that's the Z50 shared that same front end, and QA50 maybe, but for CT70s, this was the only model that had that. The other couple other things that are unique about the K0, that's the only model that used buttons on the seat. The rest of them had a piece of trim that went around, and then later models lost it all together. Let's look under the seat. The plastic tank is unique for this line as far as the entire line had the plastic tank. K1s started with a plastic tank, but then switched to steel, and the rest of the line had steel. But K0s, every one of them had a plastic tank. K0s are the only one not to have a helmet holder. Other bikes will have two holes right here, and there's a helmet holder that you use your ignition key to unlock it. K0s don't have that. The tail light on the K0 is unique for a CT70. Now, there again, it did share it with the Z50, SL70, maybe SL125. Honda used it on a couple different bikes, but as far as CT70s, that tail light only is on the K0s. Later models went to more of a horizontally rectangular light, and then it made it in a couple different sizes. Exhaust shield is unique for a K0. It's the only one with just slots and not circles, holes, and slots. And I'm sure there's a couple other things that I'm missing. I'm not scripted here. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head that might be unique to a K0. But that's the things that kind of stand out most to a people. The early ones had a one-piece stator cover where they switched to, and look how beat this one is, they switched to a two-piece stator cover that had a removable inspection plate, and then they kept that throughout the CT70 line. But the K0s are the only ones that could possibly have that, and it would be the earlier bikes. I think, like I said, I think that kind of covers the differences. Now, the problem is that none of that identifies a bike as a K0 because parts are so easily interchangeable. You could put this headlight bucket on a later model, the tail light, the exhaust, all that sort of thing could all go on the later model bikes. The only true way to identify what model you have is with the VIN tag. So let's take a second and look at the VIN tag and the VIN numbers on these bikes. Now, the K0 is unique because it's the only CT70 that has a 6-digit VIN. Now, it does share the prefix, the CT70, at the beginning, but after the dash, there's only 6 digits. This is bike 187624. Honda went to a 7-digit number after the K0 line. Okay, so if your bike has 6 digits, it is a K0 no matter where it starts. So let's talk about that. Honda made the K0 line from June of 1969 through August of 1971, I believe. They built 185,000 plus bikes. So at some point, okay, and they started at VIN number 100,001. So 100001. So if you start at 100,001 and you build 185,000 bikes, at some point that very first one had to roll over to a 2. And that's what you see on this bike. This is bike 263323. And where the confusion comes in, you get guys that join the hobby, they get online, they do a Google search or whatever for Honda CT70 identification, and they look and they see starts with a 2 and then whatever the next number, and they go, oh, I must have a 1977 CT70. Well, I get why they get confused, but you got to remember, if it's 6 digits, it's a K0. Honda did use a 2, and the number 2 did start the rest of the line, but it will always have anything newer than a K0 will have 7 digits. I hope I just didn't muddle that too much. Hope that kind of makes sense to you. So sorry. If you've got any questions, hit me up with a comment and I'll try and make it a little bit clearer. But like I said, Honda started at 100,000. They made 185,000. So at some point, the K0 line had to swap over to a 2. Now, I call these a K0. I don't typically put a model year on them. Honda did not designate the CT70 with a model year until 1976. So the bikes from 69 through 76 were just given K designations. This is a K0, the very first ones. The next model was the K1, then the K2, K3, K4, and then the 1976 model. So if you have one of these bikes and you need to look up parts, the best way to find the most accurate part is to do a search for a K0. Don't try and put a model year to these, because that might muddle things. Now, if you need to put a model year on these, most people use the build date, which is on this tag. This one was built in 4 of 71. Okay, so most people, I think, would, if you needed to title this, they would call this a 1971. This one was built in June of 1970, so I think most people would refer to that as a 1970. And then this one throws a little bit of a wrench in it. Uh-oh, we've got a different color tag. This one's, we call these bikes the silver tags, obviously because of the silver tag. And you see it doesn't have any information. No VIN, no build date. But we know through collecting and data and research and stuff that these were the very first Honda CT70s made. The first 15,500 bikes had that silver tag from June of 69 through August of 69, and then in September they switched to the black tag that you see on the rest of the bikes. And you might ask, well, how do I find out what the VIN number is on this particular bike? Well, the VIN, I'm not going to walk around there and show it to you on the red bike because I've got so much paint on it you can't hardly read the number. But the VIN is also stamped down here by the chain guard on each and every frame. So the black tag bikes, you'll find the VIN in 2 spots. Down by the chain guard and up on the steering neck. On the early silver tag bikes, the only place you're going to find, I'll go ahead and show it to you, but you might not be able to read it because I got so much paint on it. It is right there. Back to that VIN tag, or the VIN itself, doesn't really give you any kind of information about the bike, doesn't tell you what color it was or anything else. Only thing that number tells you is in what sequence this bike was built. Obviously this is 187,624, so this means it was the 87,624th bike built. Other than that, that VIN doesn't really give you any kind of other information. So now, I know I didn't hit on it too much. We'll do a video series specifically on the silver tag bikes and go over the differences of a silver tag versus a black tag. We'll keep that its own separate video. Honda also produced the K0 in a 4-speed manual instead of the, that will save for its own video. Today, I just wanted to concentrate on the 3-speed semi-automatics, because like I said, this is the most prevalent bike out on that Honda made with 185,000 of them. So I think that kind of wraps it up. If you got any questions, let me know. Send a comment. If you enjoyed the video, give me a subscribe, a like, and we will continue to pull out bikes and do other videos and other models and kind of go over and see the progression of how things change throughout the years for Honda. So guys, I appreciate you following along, and we will see you on the next video.